The trial chambers consist of three things: chambers, corridors, and non-combat rooms like the atrium. Some of these chambers have names, like Eruption for this one, and some of the non-combat rooms do too, like this one, which is called the entrance room. Interestingly, despite the fact that trial chambers don't have an official way in and out, there are now multiple entrance rooms with multiple variations, and today I'll show you all of those alongside the new trial chambers and the weird secrets and how you can easily find them from spawn. Anyway though, hello, I'm Toycat, and welcome back to Seed Sunday. This is a Seed Sunday mostly focused on the structure and not the seed, but just in case you want to explore any of these same rooms from today, you can use the seed Big Salmon 73, and this is really great because it has a trial chamber right below spawn. Even better than that, there's a tree right next to you as well, and there's this perfectly located hole. It's incredibly convenient, it's incredibly big, and so it's incredibly easy to jump into. But if you go into this hole at the very bottom point and make yourself a crafting table, then you will be in a trial chamber in one of the fewest number of blocks that you can have on any seed. Although I'd recommend using your first 3 pieces of cobblestone to make a stone pickaxe. But yeah, just mine down another 30 blocks. And what do you know? You're in a trial chamber at the part where it looks kind of like a stronghold staircase. This is really wonderful, and the best bit is that although Minecraft changed a lot of trial chamber seeds, so anything from before this date isn't necessarily going to work, all of the seeds now will be cross-platform, and so the same seed, Big Salmon 73, even when you load it up on the not Big Salmon version of the game, gives you the exact same seed, and it's got the exact same terrain everywhere, except for the minor structures, so villages, strongholds, and even trees will be in different places. So the nearest tree is over there now, instead of between you and the hole, but the hole still is there, and indeed, the hole has slightly different blocks too, and digging down from it will get you to the exact same location. Wow, it even has the exact same staircase here, and if we were to go further into it, we'd notice it's the exact same structure, because this, so Minecraft Trials Edition, that's a fun advancement name. I appreciate Java for the funny bits like that, but any single point that you can find in these trial chambers will be the same between editions, and to prove that, let's go to the entrance room. Looks like this on Medium Salmon Edition. Meanwhile, the other end of the hallway has one of these rooms, which looks weird and almost like it's broken, but it's incredibly tall and meant for wind burst or for wind charges. You know, it's a good room for getting height in. And how does this same room look on the Big Salmon version? It is also an incredibly tall room that basically solely exists so that people can learn to do this, a very satisfying room in its own right, but just one of the many new rooms that is existing, and today I'm going to show you not just the new rooms in general, but also the new entrances and then the new secrets. So let's start with the new trial chambers. These can perhaps be the most exciting, and we'll be leaving out the trial chambers which are just accessed in new ways, because this is an existing trial chamber, just slightly revamped in a few ways that are nice and also have more entrance points. But let's talk about entirely new ones. Here is the first of them, and this one was very intriguingly designed with 2 layers. There's an ominous vault on the second one, but also there are breezes that spawn down here, and the whole place is designed for breezes to have a fun time because there are all these trapdoors that just lead to little holes that you might end up trapped inside of. You can actually use this to defend yourself though, against most mobs, kind of handily in my opinion. But yeah, something else that is worth knowing is that there are multiple ranged spawners. When I first found this room, in fact the second time I found this room too, I thought there was just one ranged mob spawner over here, but there actually is one found all the way in the back here too. So if we climb up the ladder to get to the second floor, we'll be at this very back area where we'll find an entrance to the second one. Next up, we have Eruption, which is named because of the magma that is found inside of it. There are also a bunch of copper grates behind the magma, which I was very excited to explore for my first time and was disappointed to learn it's just a magma-covered room. But yeah, this is a trial chamber that will probably look somewhat familiar to you because of this big central pillar, which you'll see over here. This is very much like an old trial chamber, but that old trial chamber does still exist, and just in the way that this one right here isn't meant to have a mineshaft intersect with it, for some reason that other trial chamber has an amethyst geode. These are not normal parts of the structure, but what is a normal part are all of these spawners and all of these opportunities for keys that you can use in vaults, and that is absolutely wonderful because one of them is ominous. Indeed, one room in every major trial chamber is an ominous vault, and so if you want to know your odds of getting a mace, every time you take down one of these with a bad omen effect, about 1 in 13.33, so not terrible, but there are other rooms. Another hugely altered trial chamber is found here in Pedestal, which of course has a giant pedestal, on top of which you'll find some husks or indeed any melee mob, and some breezes. This is very similar to another trial chamber we used to have, but this one involves a lot more pillars in a lot more places, and so it does also have slightly fewer spawners, and really is just a slightly harder on the first time, but easier on the second and third time chamber with a few more little secrets. Finally, we have Slanted, which as you can see is a very slanted room with lots of different types of spawners. None of them are coming towards me though, so instead I want to explore what's in the undergrowth here, because again, this is a very similar but changed trial chamber room, and I'm curious what is hiding underneath it. Yeah, there's lots of these to mine, huh? It leads you to some copper on one side, and on the other side, just into the room, but down a floor, where you can almost immediately get poisoned if that's what you desire. So yeah, this is a fairly familiar looking room for a lot of people, but it has been changed a little bit, but for the most part, just so you know, most of the changes aren't that big. Yeah, this is a room that has a couple of changes made to it, but I would probably categorize this as being one of the old ones, to be totally honest. Although I do love the random little hidey holes they've added here and there. This is something they've done for quite a few rooms. And honestly, it's perfect if you know how to maneuver. But they've also added a brand new non-trial room. Personally, this is my favorite. It's when you go into the room which has all of the beds. It's quite nice you can do that. There is also a bed over here, which just behind it has a copper grate. And like all the other copper grates, you've got to know to sneak inside of it. And you'll find an extra bed for that 5th Minecraft player, as well as a crafting table, genuinely very valuable as someone who's tried to survive here a lot of times. And then a pot, which you can break and get nothing from, apparently. As well as a little place to sit down and, have some chairs or something. I think this is such a goofy little, side thing. And I love that Minecraft included it. There's no real need to know it's here, but it's nice anyway. They've also slightly downgraded the entrance room secrets. But before I show you the rest of those, there's one other thing I really need to mention to someone because it's driving me crazy. One of the oddest things about the trial chambers is this room. It is a chamber room which has staircases into this central room where there are 4 beds, and you can break through this to find an ominous chamber. Or an ominous spawner. This is very, very handy for getting your ominous keys made into maces. I really like that it's there. It's a nice secret when you do find it. However, there's something I'm almost certain is a mistake, but it's been here through so many versions I'm starting to think it must have some meaning, and it's a random block that you'll find up in the ceiling over here. So if you mine a few blocks, you'll see that this one here starts pre-mined. It's very, very, very confusing to me, but there is just a random hole in the chamber just to the left of this. It's not even centered. Is that hole meant to be there, or is it something, is Mojang taunting us, or is it a mistake? I really wish I could tell you because it is just there. But what I can tell you is that, like I said, they did weaken one of the entrance rooms because now there are 3 separate entrance room structure variants, as well as 3 things you can find in the current ones, which means that to kind of maybe balance this, or maybe just entirely because of the fact that they put beds elsewhere, now when you go into the secret room below the old entrance room, you won't find a bed here anymore, you'll just find a chest, and that chest can be pretty darn valuable, but it is just a chest. Something to keep in mind. Speaking of things to keep in mind, this is the old entrance room. Like I mentioned, you probably are quite familiar with it, but you might not be as familiar with this, which is indeed something you can find inside of it. This is now the 2nd place in Minecraft where you can find mangrove trees, and I think it's actually a really good fit for the chamber. It's a miniature mangrove tree, so, unlike the regular ones, it doesn't take too much work to mine, and it might introduce people to a brand new type of tree they've never experienced. However, what they also haven't changed is the vault, which is in the top here, the 2 chest loots, which indeed are right here, and the entrance, which no matter which type of room you mine into, will always lead you to a 3x3x1 space, which is just like this. I cannot tell you why this needs to exist, but it does, not just here in this type of trial chamber, but also over here in this one. As you can see, the mangrove tree is in fact still here, but it's a very different room, which has a much taller 2nd level. Let's quickly wind charge our way up there and show you that this is where the vault is on this layer. It's a little harder to get into. There are still 2 chests like before, containing more or less the same loot, but then there is a whole thing going on down here, which is very odd to me, because again, this is very clearly hinting that this was the original entrance to the room, but behind this door is the same 3x3x1 little hole. First though, I just want to show you something fun that happened in this trial chamber I was about to show you, because as you can see, this is clearly a random hallway that is intersected with a lush cave biome, but interestingly, Minecraft actually does plan for this, and this isn't an accident that there's clay below the chest and there's a drip leaf next to it, as much as it looks like one, because you can actually find glowberries and moss blocks in the chest, so they specifically programmed the chest to be different based on the biome it's in. I think that's a fun detail of actually integrating into the biomes rather than just saying it's an accident when it happens. Really, really fun little detail, I personally think. Anyway, so I'm here in this trial chamber anyway because I want to show you the third entrance room. This is the one which is the most interesting and honestly looks the most like it is, meant to be something else entirely, like it's meant to be a trial room. However, something interesting you might know if you climb through this thing, there's another staircase over there we need to access because that's where the trial chamber is. But if you climb to the very top of this thing and then, wait, do you have to mine through blocks to access the other side? It looks like you do. What a weird thing. Anyway, there's a vault over here, but something interesting that you might also notice is there's a second vault over here. So, yeah, this is actually the best entrance room, but you lose access to that tree, so maybe not the best room, depending on what you want. But anyway, there's an entrance door in the ceiling, right? And what happens when you mine through that entrance door? Have a guess, internet. I would love you to think to yourself, what is behind the entrance door in the ceiling here? Because you might be fascinated to learn it's a 3x1x3, but still the same dimensions, entrance room to the ceiling. Minecraft is adding a bunch of lore implying there is something to these entrance rooms, and at the same time saying, oh yeah, you're not meant to access it from that way. Here is the developer who did most of the structure work behind the trial chambers, saying specifically there isn't meant to be an entrance to the surface, and so instead we have to work out why the heck do they keep adding these then? Why have they not removed it and instead doubled down adding far more of them? This is a trickier question to answer because as much as I love looking at renderings and seeing just how wonderful it could look if you could have a trial chamber accessible from the surface, I do think it would defeat the point if it went all the way up to the surface, and so instead, what should Minecraft do? Should they just make it so you find these things randomly? Yeah, that is what most people have concluded, but then why have an entrance room at all? I think that what they're clearly implying is the entrance room is here for lore reasons. Every structure in Minecraft is meant to make some amount of sense. Like, you as the player are meant to interpret it, but that, by giving you an entrance room, by giving you a clear way that players would have gone in and out, and by making it kind of like a vault door, they're implying that there was some amount of sealing in here being done by some either magical force, or maybe by illagers a long time ago, or maybe by something which predates humans and illagers by a long time. But Minecraft adding this subtle piece of lore, or maybe not so subtle based on the fact that it's named the entrance room, but they're adding this piece of lore which you can choose to access or you can choose to ignore. You could just come into this room and say, yeah, it's where I go for a couple of chests and that's the room it is. It's the restock room where you can place a bed safely, or you could see it as much, much more, but currently there are 3 variants and this one has 2 vaults. Whereas the other rooms both have 1 vault each, as you can see right here, and both have 2 chests each, but then in balance for the lack of a vault, they give you a tree, a mangrove tree, or a cactus. Honestly, I would feel very shorted if I got a cactus. Also, the fact that this can exist even though there's no water nearby is hugely interesting to me, but you can get some clay, you can get some sand, and you can get some cacti, which might be important to you. I don't know who it would be important to. Maybe if you were doing a trial chamber only survival, you're trying to survive a ridiculous number of days in here, you'd appreciate cacti so you could make cactus green, but otherwise, it's a big mystery that you'll have to work out yourself. Speaking of working things out yourself, I want to know what you think about the entrance room. Do you think that, just because the structure designer says it's not going anywhere, and just because of the fact that there are lots of rooms which don't have any real tie, do you think this is going to tie into something later on in Minecraft? Do you think this has some link to something which already exists? Or do you think that the explanation I posited is the most likely? That just, yeah, it's an entrance room thematically and in the lore, but not in terms of actual reality? Because as far as actually finding these structures go, for the most part, you do just randomly dig into them, and there is a certain joy to that too. I think you need to be aware about how to exactly dig into them, what the layer you should be mining at is, but when you do find one of these randomly, it feels pretty good, and when you find one that's special, like in a lush cave, or whether you're in one which has far too many slimes, as well as a giant G on the wall, what does the G stand for? Is it for Mojang? Is it for something else entirely? Or is it the fact that there is a ravine right over here? Oh, wow. really was pushed rather than walked out of that one. But the fact that you can find these wonderful structures in so many places and they have this old school vibe of appearing basically anywhere means that you can look at them as being the newest addition to Minecraft, or you could look at them as being one of the very oldest bits. And personally, I think that they're an absolute joy. And even though they're, I think one of the cool things about them is that through the development process, they have changed quite a serious amount. Is that a mob spawner right below it too? It looks like it is. There's also an iron vein over here, so this is the ideal ravine to be in, really, in lots of ways. But yeah, if you are looking to be in ravines, this is the seed that you should go for, and this is the structure which I think is most interesting for adventuring. Already, tons of ideas are coming off my head about how to use this for fun little challenges. I think it'd be fun to beat Minecraft using only 1.21 features. I think it'd be fun to see how, if you could survive long enough exclusively in trial chambers using just their resources. I think that it would be fun to do lots of things in Minecraft 1.21, and I hope that you're enjoying this, one of the last previews of that update before it's fully out. I do look forward to showing off some fun and quirky seeds involved in the trial chamber after it's a feature. But for now, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you have a very wonderful rest of your Sunday, because I'll see you next time. Goodbye.